This is a Culture Inject production.
Welcome back to Part of Us. Before we begin, follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at InVogueCraze and on Twitter at partofusfancast. If you've got comments or questions, let us hear them. Email them to us at partofusevf@gmail.com. And please remember to review and rate our podcast. It matters, it matters, it matters.
All right, let's catch up with some trending news. We want to issue a correction. In episode 2 of this season, we speculated that the songs in An In Vogue Christmas might have been produced by our producer, The Network. Our producer, Matthew, reached out to Foster McElroy, who confirmed that all the songs were actually produced by themselves.
In addition, our last episode played out to a remix of Emotions that our mysterious benefactor gifted us. It may not be available for purchase, so enjoy it here, folks, exclusively. And thanks again to our secret supporter.
Thank you. And this is near and dear to my heart. Variety has announced that Guy Ritchie, the auteur best known for Snatch, Aladdin, and comparing sex with Madonna to cuddling gristle, has been chosen to direct Disney's upcoming live-action remake Hercules. As we all know, En Vogue was the inspiration for the 1997 animated classic Standout Muses. Do we think there's any chance he'll cast the Funky Divas as Calliope and the gang, or did his box office bomb starring Madge sweep away his interest in working with pop stars? What say you? Do you think there's a chance that En Vogue might get cast as the Muses?
It ain't happening.
I think we can let that go.
No!
In a just and fair world, perhaps, but that ain't how Hollywood works, unfortunately.
Yeah, they're going to be looking for the names, the stars. I got money that I was thinking Jennifer Hudson, but now that she's got that show, I think she might be a little busy being an EGOT and all. But I'm definitely feeling like Lizzo's going to be, in the mix for that, and some of the younger girls in the industry.
Do you think they have the gospel chops to pull it off? I know, like the most of the muses, the singing voices of the muses in the film, the animated film, they were Broadway, but they had the gospel choirs. Can Lizzo sing gospel-esque?
I think the studio's gonna make it work for them.
I think Lizzo has a nice voice. Have you listened to her new album?
No, I haven't.
I have. I've listened to a little bit. She has a better voice than I think people maybe give her, but she gives a particular type of singing, and it ain't gospel. She be hollering a lot, but it's not gospel.
But she did the song Special, and she did it on SNL, and she tried to do a little gospel squall. I was like, okay, I was here for it.
Okay, well, my dreams are officially ended, so I guess we could go on to our topic of the week.
All right, folks. So this is going to be a big discussion this week. We're going to spend this episode answering a letter submitted to us by our listener, DT. It's a reasonably long letter, and DT touches on several interesting things. So it really did need its own episode. And we're sure many of you will have your own opinion on what DT wrote, so please share it with us down in the comments or wherever you're listening. Send us a letter so we can read it on air. All right, so let's tackle this letter piece by piece. We're going to tag team this one and answer as we go, as opposed to reading it in its entirety first. So DT writes, "Hey folks, congrats on the new season. Loving the content and the discussions. You mentioned at the end of the last season the possibility of having some of your listeners chime in on the podcast. Happy to participate. I know a couple of you were maybe a bit thrown by my defense of Dawn last season. I certainly did not mean to come off too pro Dawn or anti Terry, although I can see now that I was a bit rough on Terry.
Yes, you were.
I think it's because I think it's because there is no way to defend Dawn without calling Terry out on some things. But overall, y'all have to admit, so far in the show, Dawn's take on things is clearly the least favored by this podcast, which is okay. It's all in good fun. I think there will forever be different opinions and different angles to look at how the original four broke up and why. I know you all are more accepting of In Vogue after the original four. I have to admit, I am not. When Dawn left, I was 50% done with In Vogue. And when Max left, 40% more of In Vogue interest left me. Since then, I've barely...
Wait a second. Hold it right there. So this long letter is only at 10%. My God.
Only at 10%.
This is 10%. These long pages are at 10%. Woo. Okay.
Has had it. I know I need to get over it, but understand that I'm a bit older, mid-40s, so I was a high schooler at the height of In Vogue's fame as it was happening. I lived through the original four when they were on top of the world. I will never view In Vogue as anything but the original four. After that, the remaining replacement members are like fill-ins, literally work for hire members. I don't say that to be rude.
You do.
They really are. As much as you all like Rhone, she was a salaried employee of In Vogue, just like the pianist and drummer and road manager. Even though In Vogue was created by people other than In Vogue. Sorry about it. She has no stock in the group, just so you know, since I know you all are Rhone fans. Is that right of Cindy and Terry? What do you think?
Okay, good. We can take a moment to kind of digest all of that. And that's only the intro. I'll just hop in. Oh, go ahead, JP.
No, go ahead. No, I just find it so interesting that this conversation, like, about, Rhone or any other replacement being a salaried member of In Vogue, it's such an interesting take, because I think I mentioned to you guys, I've kind of went down the Supremes rabbit hole. And if you think that how the In Vogue fans bicker about, Dawn or Max or whoever versus whoever, like the Supremes fans.
Whole other level.
It is a whole other level, like the Mary Wilson versus the Diana Ross fans versus the Jean Terrell, and like all of that. But essentially, when Diana left the group and Jean Terrell left the group, Mary Wilson took over, and essentially all the other Supremes were salaried employees, including Cindy Birdsong and every other member after that. As some of the fans it's such a point of contention, because some fans feel like, oh, how dare Mary do that? And some of the fans feel like it makes perfect sense. For me, I mean, I think it just makes perfect sense. As a founding member, that's your thing. And so anyone else that comes in, I think they should essentially be a salaried employee. So I think Cindy and Terry are perfectly right, if that's how they're doing it. I mean, I haven't heard them say anything about how Rhone is paid or what that looks like, but...
You know what? I haven't either, but DT said it like he knows. Do you know DT?
He needs some receipts.
Right,
got some receipts.
Can you share those with us, DT? Or is this something that you're just assuming? I wonder.
I don't think that Rhone would be there that long if she was not being compensated properly. I also think it's interesting to call, I sort of was joking, but I kind of mean, I'm a little serious about it. Like, it would be really different if it was like the Supremes, right? I'm pretty sure the origin story of the Supremes was that they knew each other.
Yes, they were
right?
friends.
And then
they all did the same projects, right?
They
the
were
booster
friends.
projects.
Right. So, like, this is different in that they were all employees for hire, if we're being honest. Like, it's just about who owns the name now and who gets to call the shots now. But for the longest time, the ladies were all also employees.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna shut up in a second, but like, I think it's really important to note that, like, with the Supremes, there are moments post Diana and in various iterations of the group that are to be appreciated. And I just feel like sometimes we have to know that a group can evolve over time and new fans can jump in and out and appreciate a lineup in its whatever iteration it's in. We don't have to always hold on to the original, because low key, like, when group members leave, what am I expected to do? Go back and work at the A&P? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I'm going to keep this machine going and figure out how to make it work. And so I appreciate the fact that the ladies kept it going and said, okay, this next era with this composition of the group is going to give this particular kind of thing. So like, we just have to give grace, I think, and sort of say like, this is livelihood, but it's also like, fans can hop on and off.
Exactly.
Just like members do.
I remember when the Cure was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and there's only been one long-standing member who's the lead singer, the main creative. You probably writes all of the lyrics anyway, because it's a band, but Robert Smith, and he said, anybody can come and go as they leave, basically. And when I think about En Vogue, I think of legacy. I think they still have a lot of potential, even with, them being up in age. So I'm happy they kept it going. At the same time, though, even in groups where everyone is original, where everyone is siblings, sometimes there's always going to be the leader. There's always going to be the people calling the shots. And so you look at a group like the Eagles, it was Glenn Frey. He was always the head. And, when the people that were there from the beginning, regardless, he was the leader. Kiss, Gene Simmons is the leader. There were original members who, they don't get any of the merchandising. He's getting a lot of that. And then I think Paul Stanley, because, they're besties. You think about the Rolling Stones, Keith Richards and Mick Jagger. I forget the other band member's name, but he was like, a lot of those songs I wrote, but they had like this, this partnership. So, when I was coming up with bass lines, I wasn't getting writer's credit. So even with everybody being on equal footing, as far as starting at the same time, there's always going to be, it just seems to me like it's never actually going to be equal. So if you're coming in as someone who, years later after like the peak, I don't expect her to, to be on the same footing financially, as the two founding members. That just wouldn't be realistic. So I don't think you expect someone to come into a group and say, oh look, I know we've been around all these years, but we're gonna give you 33%, because that's equal. However, your point about her being like no different from a drummer or a road manager, like that, that's ridiculous. A drummer or road manager is not going to be on the merchandise. Like, the fans aren't screaming for them on stage. They're not doing interviews. They're not in that process. So I just think, you're taking it a little bit too far, but I'm pacing myself because, like I said, this is a long letter. So that's what I'll say regarding the first.
But let me say this though. Like, I understand, what DT is saying. Like, I'm not in my mid 40s, but I definitely was like outside during, the peak in Vogue. Like, that original four is just a special thing. So for me, I try my best to be open to what's around, but I can understand his sentiment. But one thing I did want to ask you guys is that, being that Rhone, has, she came along in what, 03, I guess, 03,
mm-hmm.
04. Do you guys think that if they had added another member right after Dawn left, instead of trying to go on as a trio, if they had just went ahead and kind of filled that spot then with someone, do you think, and that new member had an opportunity to be a part of their actual mainstream success in some ways, do you think that person would have been a little bit more welcomed universally? Because like, if you talk about the Supremes, for example, like when Jean Terrell took over, they still had top 10 pop hits. Like, they were still a relevant,
mm-hmm.
commercially successful group for a few years. But with Rhone, she hasn't had any type of real commercial success with En Vogue. So I think it's hard for people to really take her seriously as a member of En Vogue. When you think about the En Vogue legacy, you think about their big moments, you think about them being signed to a major label, you think about, the eras that are, most popular, and she's not a part of any of those. I think that's where the disconnect comes in. Sure, she's been in the group technically longer than Dawn or Maxine, but she doesn't have the moments. You know what I'm saying? I think that's kind of where that disconnect comes in. But do you think?
To answer that question, as like a fan, like who's a fan and wants to see the legacy continue, that makes me appreciate her even more, because she came, like, the wheels had fallen off, or they were trying desperately to keep them on. Like, the car stalled in the middle of the freeway, the engine is smoking, and she came and allowed them to continue driving. I think that's much more difficult to do than to come in into like an established situation, like from what my understanding of the Supremes, and like even with Up the Ladder to the Roof and what is it, Stone Love, and anything else that might have been after that. Like, when people talk about the Supremes, they're not talking about Jean Tarot. They're talking about
of course it's Diana Ross, of course, but so to kind of the discount, and like I said, like when you started talking about Bad Weather and the other person, and we're like, who was that? Because like I know a little bit, I didn't realize there were that many, and there were so many changes, and I don't even think I knew that. Yeah, well, at that point they were pretty much they were irrelevant by that point. They couldn't get a hit by that point. Okay. But I mean,
to say like within Vogue, Rhone has been there like 10 years. I think she helps a lot with the consistency of the group. 10 years consecutively since things really transpired badly. So it's just like with, Charlie's Angels, where, people always think of Farrah and I want to say Sabrina, but it's actually Kate Jackson and the Houston girl, Kelly Garrett, but Jacqueline Smith. Like, they're always going to think about those three. Like, those are going to be the ones they always talk about. No matter that Cheryl Ladd was on more seasons, and the seasons might have, like the ratings didn't just dive, but it's just that iconic image. But give it up for the other ladies that kept the legacy going. If you're a fan, like if you're a diehard fan. So I get the general public, and I get that, like if you're going to just be singing old songs, that other people did, like, people that'll make people want the original. Like, if you're a nostalgia act, people want the nostalgia that they remember. So I get all of that, but like as a diehard, for her contributions to keep the legacy going, and then just being such a phenomenal singer, I don't agree with that assessment. Their success is limited, but there is, they're able to still tour. They have like a couple of more dates at recording time of like a pretty big tour that a lot of people have gone to. So that says something, and she's helping them keep that.
But before we get back to the letter, do y'all think though, if Rhone had came in back in 98 or 97 when Dawn left, do you think the reception would be different? Do you think it would be like no?
Like, I think so. If you think about, I don't know, like the Supremes are like the gap between girl groups from the Supremes eras and like the 90s is like significant enough that I feel like when I think about the 90s, even into the early 2000s and girl groups, I feel like when I think about the Spice Girls when Ginger left, I think about like this is not a member leaving, but I think about when we lost Left Eye, and I think about like
Destiny's Child,
even Destiny's Child, and I realized that Destiny's Child worked because they were still new-ish to a pop landscape, and so they could still be kind of morphing and figuring it out. The Spice Girls were kind of global peak phenomenon, and then their member left, and so I don't think they ever considered replacing, because how do you sort of like introduce that? And then TLC, remember when they had that reality show, they tried to sort of kind of bring in a member, sort of kind of oh so crispy, and the fans went off, because like you just don't do that because of how established they were. And I feel like in Vogue at the time, number one, it was a time crunch, right? Like I feel like they had to keep the train moving ASAP. But then I think they also were so well established, and each you had your fave, you knew the girls, so you couldn't sort of drop a new girl in without it kind of causing a ruckus. And so I think it would have been a problem. However, I will give another example. I recently started listening to the Sugar Babes out of like the UK, and I think it's interesting because by the end of the Sugar Babes like run, they started as 3 girls. After their first album, one of the girls left. Then they carried on with a new girl for like a number of albums, and then eventually the original member started leaving. And so by the end of the era of their run, the Sugar Babes was none of the original members, and they were still at one point putting out reasonably successful hits. And so I kind of wish, based off of Matan's Charlie's Angels reference, that we thought about girl groups that way, where it's like, if you could, I kind of love the idea of a girl group lasting decades, but there's just new versions of the girl group, and you just sort of
I don't like that.
enjoy. I'm just like, if we gotta always reclaim the magic, then like we'll always be disappointed, because once the original lineup is gone, it's just it. And plus, last note is just like I don't like looking at an original lineup where I know that the girls don't want to be there or the people don't want to be there. Sometimes these reunions happen and these people stick it out for the coins, but you can tell they don't like each other. And I'm just like, I don't ever want to see that for groups I love. So I think Rhone deserves to have came in when she came in, and I think it works out exactly how it's supposed to work out. It would have been a hot mess if they tried to drop Rhone or anybody else.
I co-signed that.
I don't know.
Right.
I never thought about it before now, but if they had added someone back then, I just wonder if it would have had that kind of Destiny's Child effect. Like when they brought in the 2 new members and then the other girl left out, like that really catapulted them to a whole other level. It was just drama.
Yes,
and I think we had really been used to seeing girl groups try and fake play nice. You know, we talked about offline, we talked about the niceties being ladylike. I think for so often, so many different groups had tried to, you know, keep everything on the up and up and try to, you know, be very PR focused. And that drama really took Destiny's Child to international superstardom. Like, yeah, Say My Name was a hit. But that was after the first 2 girls left. And then with that Independent Women and Survivor, like it just went to a whole other level because of that chaos. So I'm
different
curious.
groups.
It was also such a joke for so
Right.
long, though, right?
That
y'all remember
SNL
the Mad
skit.
TV sketches?
It's a joke that took them to the next level, though.
And if we're being honest, though, I don't think that you can and I love every single member of Destiny's Child for various reasons and contributions to the group. But like Michelle has never been valued as an actual member of Destiny's Child, in my opinion, unless you really, really, really F with Destiny's Child. But like to the masses, Michelle's always been the replacement, and she's the butt of the joke half the time. And I just feel like that's all kind of rooted in like, we don't need to like, it's Kelly. It's always been Kelly and Beyonce as the original members, and anybody else coming in is like, you know, kind of the butt of the joke eternally.
But I think that has more to do with Michelle just not being that girl. Like, no shit. That's a whole other podcast, a whole other story.
To defend Michelle, when Michelle came into Destiny's Child as Writings on the Wall, Destiny's Child wasn't giving the 8 counts that they were expected to give. Right. I Lose My Breath. So they had to morph into a pop group, and Michelle signed on for an R&B girl group. And so I think that was the disconnect. Right. But yeah, you're right. That's another podcast.
That's another podcast, another discussion, because we'll be here another 30 minutes talking about that. But all right, let's get back to this letter. The letter picks back up here. This time around, instead of spewing off my perspective on the demise of the original 4, I would like to pose some carefully worded questions to you all, and see if you all discussing these questions will invite further or different perspectives on why the original 4 did not stay together. Here goes. Number 1. Were you okay with Terry's decision to go solo in 95 after Funky Divas and Runaway Love without telling the rest of the members? Or even if she told the members, were you okay with that decision? Why or why not? Remember, she went solo first. Dawn tried to go solo second in 96-97 after Terry went solo. And I'll just say this. I think when you look at the brand, when you look at, the overall brand of a group, when you do something that doesn't really match the brand, I personally feel like it tarnishes the brand. And when I think about Southern Gal, I personally feel like it tarnished I feel like it took them down a few notches. Like, this is like the powerhouse singer of your group. She's coming out singing some real Southern country sounding, like it was just so off brand. You know what I'm saying? So for me, like, I think they should have sat down and just waited for Cindy to pop out that baby. They should have been in the studio while she was pregnant, so as soon as she snapped back, they can come out.
Well, I share your sentiments regarding the record. I don't know why Sylvia allowed that, because there's this interesting interview with Denzel Foster where he's explaining, like, during Funky Divas, she was trying to stop it. And, you know, so she had called up Teddy Riley. She had called up Jimmy and Terry. She had called up, who's the other one that's always mentioned with Jimmy, Terry, Teddy Riley? Who was around that time? Well, I forget. Maybe it was definitely those production teams, and was like, you know, maybe it was Babyface and L.A. Reid. But she just was not feeling Funky Divas. Now, people can say whatever. I understand why, as a record executive, for someone who, you know, for an act that was very successful on the R&B charts the first time Hold On was huge. It was an R&B thing. And then they're doing all these other things. Her thing is, like, is radio going to play this? So, of course, she's not going to, like, Free Your Mind. Not that but anyway, I say all that to say, I really wish they would have tried. She would have, you know, been like, Denny, Tommy, you cannot produce every track on this record. And I know Something for the People did I Don't Want to Wait Till Tomorrow, but that's, you know, like, Tommy and Denny, like, that's, they're proteges, basically. Like, it's all Bay Area people, and they're kind of like the godfathers. So, like, okay, well, we'll let you produce a track for our girls, but it's through them. Like, I really wish Sylvia would have been like, no, Terry, you got Dave Jam Hall, or who else was making music? But whoever, like, go to Europe, where anybody. But, regarding though, so I share your sentiment regarding that. I don't necessarily think it tarnished the brand. It like came and went, you know, it came and went, and then they had their biggest hit. So I don't think it necessarily, to me, it didn't tarnish the brand. Unfortunately, it tarnished her career, because then, you know, the next hiatus, when Cindy was popping out her other two children, Terry singing backup, like, there's no option for a solo record because anyway, but just because of, I'll just say, because of the lack of success of Southern Gal. But I do not believe that she did not tell the members. I think that's something that Don has made up. Because Maxine sang background on I Don't Mind. Her, you know, I can't see her not telling the group. I think they were all aware of that. And like, to what you said about popping out babies and things like that, like, what was she supposed to do? Like, while you have two members that were, you know, pregnant. Like, I definitely wouldn't want my band member. I think, to me, it looks worse when you have someone singing backup and you're in a superstar group. That's tarnishing the brand, because it's like, what's going on? So I'd rather her be able to make, you know, since she's not an actress, like Cindy was an actress, you know, it would have been great if she could have done like a long running play on Broadway or something. But she's a singer. She's an R&B singer. She has to make money. She has expenses. So allowing them time off, they can't be mad at her for working and doing what she does. So no, I don't think I don't agree with you that she didn't tell the rest of the members, because like I said, Maxine is on that record, and I'm okay with her decision to record. That's how she makes her money. What was she supposed to do?
Yeah, well, I'm pretty much in the same camp. Like, I just feel like I actually don't mind the idea of going solo. I think sometimes it's cool to, like, I think there was like an experiment, like, to see how people might react to, because like it's business, right? So if a group is powerful, at one point you're going to want to sort of test the sum of the parts and see, like, well, if I send this one out, is it going to be successful? Because that might mean more money, that may mean more opportunity, and if it hits, then the group is even more powerful when they come back. So I get like the idea of like exploring it. So I don't mind that it was explored. I just think it was out of order. Like, I just wish that it had happened after another like project from the group, as opposed to when it happened. Because I think like it didn't set the girls up individually for success, because when one flops, then the rest of them all kind of lose their opportunities, more or less, because it doesn't make sense to give every girl a deal. So it felt like they could have done one more full album cycle before they said, okay, maybe we're going to take a pause, or maybe we're going to do something else or whatever. And then at that point, if they all had their opportunities to go do something solo in some way, shape, or form, if it didn't work, then maybe the nostalgia for the group would have been powerful enough for them to come back and sort of make it work again. So it just felt like it was all out of order. I don't really care what Dawn thinks or whoever thinks about who said what or who told who, because at this point, I don't remember what I did last week, so I don't trust anybody to remember what happened the way that it happened decades ago. So that's tired. But in terms of like when it should have happened, I absolutely think that like it's cool, but it should have just happened differently in a different order.
I think we also have to point out, though, just because a group takes a 1 or 2 year hiatus, it doesn't mean you should be hanging in the child line, not being able to pay your bills. So I think that there's a whole other issue about the fact that they were so broke that, you know, they were all looking for an outlet to make some money, which to me says we need to renegotiate. But that's a whole nother conversation.
But they were in the renegotiations. That's why there was no music.
I feel like I always heard Dawn say they didn't find out initially that she was recording. Of course, she had to tell them at some point, but I think the issue was like, I guess they didn't know, like, hey girl, I just got this solo deal, so I'm going into the studio tomorrow to record this album, versus like, you know, it's a month in and like, oh yeah, I'm recording.
But so, it's like,
you know. It's giving Danity Kane like Dawn when she was doing her side stuff.
Yeah.
The girls were like,
And I feel like if I were in a group and you're going solo, I want to know the minute you made the decision. I don't want to know next week. I don't want to know 3 days later. Like, if you're about to sign this contract as a group member, I personally would at least want to know, like, listen, bitch, like, I'm signing, the bills are due. This is what it is. This is a courtesy call, but I ain't in the girl group, so.
I don't like, some people have a victim complex, and it's like, you know, like, and who can I give an example of? Because the person I just thought of, I don't want to use as an example. But I would just say, like, you know, people can see things, like it could be 10 people and one person is just so offended by something. I don't think it was ever that deep, because, like, why would Maxine be doing backing vocals on the record if it was just like this big point of contention? Like, I think at least Cindy and Maxine, in the way they understood, and like that gives them space to not be in a rush to be, you know, like, oh well, you know, I feel bad that my band members aren't able to, you know, tour or anything because I'm at home with my child. That's kind of alleviating that stress, knowing that, okay, you know, my girl's out in the world doing her thing. So when exactly she was told, or when exactly they were told, of course I can't say. I'm sure they probably wouldn't even remember, because they get the years more messed up than we do. They'd be like, oh yeah, she recorded her album in 2000. But I don't ever think it's that deep to anybody but Don. But with Don, as we'll probably get into later, everything is a point of contention, and everything, somehow she felt betrayed and someone should have did something differently. So that's it for me on this segment of the letter.
So the next question is, this will be an interesting one. So I'm gonna read the question, and then I'm gonna sort of let DT do some offer some thoughts too before we jump in. So the question being, do you believe the original 4 members would have had a fighting chance to renegotiate their contracts with Elektra, Sylvia, Rhone after Funky Divas and Runaway Love, if Terry had joined forces with the girls as part of a renegotiation process with Elektra? DT says, I have to throw in my 2 cents from your last discussion that touched on this. Dawn did not say the plan of attack from the start was to breach a contract with Sylvia, Rhone, Elektra, go to another label and risk getting sued. This is certainly an option depending on whatever is on the table with the new label, prospects, and potential deals. But the initial plan was to do what all artists do: go back to your label, in this case Elektra, renegotiate terms. This was particularly a good idea because stock in Vogue in 1994-95 is much higher than in 89. How about Elektra agreeing to increase In Vogue's royalties from 2 cents to 20 cents a record? Maybe give the girls some greater co-production, vocal arranger, or publishing credits, upfront signing bonuses. Maybe the label writes off more of the production or promotion costs than the girls are responsible for. All kinds of ways to reach a middle ground to keep your talent happy. As a foursome, the girls had leverage to have those renegotiations, especially right after selling 15 million records. Terry chose not to join join her girls in that process while conveniently and secretly working on a solo project. That's conjecture. Anyway, you all really have no negative impression of these actions by Terry at that time. And we're talking 1995. So there's nothing you can blame on Dawn at this point.
Stop trying to lead the witness. Sure. Objection, leading the witness.
Did he not hear anything I said in that episode? Because I know.
Yeah, I think he's taking what you said as a fact. Because Dawn definitely, when she talked about it, that's the interview I was trying to find. This was before she did all of the Instagram Live. So this was before the pandemic. It might be 2015 or something. But she talked about, and I remember, she said it was herself, Maxine, and Cindy. They were at LaFace, and they were ready to sign. But it wasn't like, we're prospect. It was like, we're ready to sign. They had a lawyer go over the contract. They were like, you're indemnified. And she was upset with Cindy because Cindy did not want to sign it because... they weren't obviously indemnified because there was a chance that the Elektra could sue the ladies, and so that it could affect her husband's pension, and that's why Cindy didn't sign, and Donna was very upset with that. So it wasn't just like, oh yeah, we're looking and we're going to bring back offers and show them to Elektra, like you pointed out that could have been what was happening. She seemed very upset that Cindy was afraid that there could be litigation that could affect her husband's pension, and that she did not sign that. She was upset because she was saying it was something like $16 million on the table.
There was a deal on the table with the phase 4. Oh gosh. I think it was $9 million. It was fully indemnified, which means to fully be protected, all the way around 100%, that if anything should happen and the label comes to us, Sylvia Rhone comes to us and says she wants to sue us, that she would not be able to because we were fully protected. Our deal was null and void. It's such a horrible deal that in any court of law, I even went out and I hired the attorney, Donald Passman, who, if anybody in the inside or any independent artist knows the book called All You Need to Know About the Music Business, he wrote that book. And I'm thinking, okay, he's going to explain to the girls where they understand it, and they're going to get it, and they're going to understand perfectly well that we will not get sued by Sylvia Rhone. We are so fully protected that there's nothing she can do to hurt us. There's no harm to come to in Vogue. We are okay, and everything's fine. And when he told them that on the phone, we did a conference call, and he told them, yes, you guys are perfectly okay. There's nothing Sylvia can do. She can't sue you. The girls still decided, okay, and Cindy, this is more Cindy than the rest of us because she felt like her husband would be sued as well if we were to take that deal and something happened. And there was he said there's a 1% chance that you can be sued. But there's a 99% chance that you won't be sued. And Cindy looked at the 1% chance and said, I don't want to take that chance.
So it wasn't just like, oh yeah, it was like, no, and I think, but Terry knew, because I remember you also pointed us to this interview that Terry did where she kind of discussed that, how she didn't want to go to other labels. But what I will say though, DT, because I don't even, because the question, but then you went into all this other stuff. I'll answer your question directly, then I'll let the other gentleman have it. Do you believe the original 4 members would have had a fighting chance to renegotiate their contracts with the Elektra's?
Well, hold on, Matan. Let me finish what DT said, because I think some of that might end up coming out and be responded to by what I think, where I think you're going. So DT finishes up by saying, like, not sure why some of the panelists are believing that Dawn wanted to blindly breach the deal with Elektra and just go to another label. She never said that. She said they should go see what's out there, collect some offers with other labels, and go back to Elektra and negotiate as a foursome, and then go from there. There's nothing shady or controversial about talking to other labels. Happens all the time. Artists, like the rest of us, are always thinking about a better financial opportunity at every juncture, or at least they should be, even when they are already under a contract with a label. Most of the time, renegotiations are successful with no news coverage or fanfare. That happens all the time in the industry, music and TV. Examples being the cast of Friends, Modern Family, TLC, Prince, Larry Hagman, Esther Roll,
wait, hold on. He said with no coverage or fanfare, and then named some of the most public. Anyway.
That's not a huge act of rebellion to renegotiate after you sell 10 million records or your TV show goes number 1. White artists do it all the time after they sell 1 million records. I'm just saying. No talent is going to keep their same slave contract, quote unquote, after they blow up, even back in the mid-90s. Most record companies will renegotiate and pay something more than what's laid out in the original dinosaur deal customarily given to brand new artists. Those slave deals are never meant to last past 1, maybe 2 albums at best if the artist is successful. I will never understand why Terry is not under fire for not joining the girls at this moment in time. Now, Matan, go in.
Well, she's under fire with me, but go on.
Okay, well, I'll definitely let you have it. Let me just say my little piece. I'm going to answer your question specifically. Okay, and let me just read it again because this is what I'm answering, because there was a lot of other stuff that you threw. You're throwing everything but the kitchen sink. But to answer your question directly, do you believe the original 4 members would have had a fighting chance to renegotiate their contracts with Electra Sylvia Rhone after Funky Diva's Runaway Love if Terry had joined forces with the girls as part of a renegotiation process with Electra? This is what I know, based on what Dawn has said in her interviews and what, was industry talk at the time. The girls did renegotiate their contract. I think that's what people failed to realize. They did renegotiate their contract. What happened was, right, one of I would just say the impetus behind them renegotiating was the person who signed them to Too Tough Enough Productions left. So they got out of their contract with Too Tough Enough Productions and were able to sign directly with the label. But that's when renegotiations began, because obviously, they had demands and they had things of that nature. And so there's multiple interviews where Cindy is saying, we didn't expect renegotiations to take as long as they did, but then, I got married and pregnant, and Maxine was like, then I got pregnant. So all of this is happening during the renegotiation process. And one of the Instagram lives that Dawn did, and I wish, they were hours long, there's so many of them, but I wish there were certain key points that I wish I could have, just downloaded the video, then took it to some kind of snipping app and just saved those clips. But she mentioned that the other girls did, renegotiate their contracts, and she specifically pointed out Terry, and she was like, yeah, she probably, got even more because she did a solo record. So they did renegotiate their contracts. I don't know why they think they didn't renegotiate their contract. And even if you don't believe that they did, or if you don't believe me, I'm just saying, like, they were signed to Too Tough Enough, then they weren't. They signed directly with Electra, so that's already a renegotiation phase. And I know people always try to bring up the Terry Denny connection, but she was along with them when they got from up under Too Tough Enough Productions. So that's what I have to say.
Are you saying they've renegotiated separately?
Well, that's what Dawn kind of implied, that they renegotiated separately. And remember, she, I guess, had the opportunity to renegotiate her contract because their contracts had solo rights in them, maybe like the initial contracts that they signed. And this is, it's canon now that she renegotiated her contract to just give her to, for them to get up to, for Electra to give up her solo rights so that she could get a solo deal elsewhere, but no other parts of her deal did she renegotiate. She just was like, releasing me from my solo rights, which is a renegotiation because now that's no longer in your contract. But in the Instagram live video, she talked about 1997 and the renegotiation and how she doesn't get royalties and how the other girls renegotiated. She specifically mentioned Terry and was like, she probably got more because she did a solo record, which is interesting because we all know how Southern Girl did. But it did over 100,000, which, during the 90s, that's very little, but people still some people were able to do second albums just selling 100,000 if there was enough buzz. Mm-hmm. But then on the opposite side, you had people selling 15 million records. You had the Bodyguard soundtrack, you had Metallica, you had all these people selling 8 million, these bands. So 100,000, is not good, but depending on who you are, you might be able to, go back in the studio.
Yeah. I just think that the biggest problem, so to answer the question, do I believe the original 4 members would have had a fighting chance to renegotiate their contracts had Terry joined forces or whatever? I think the key element to this is if you are a group and you want to renegotiate a contract, you want to renegotiate as a group, you are stronger together. You know what I mean? So if you're a 4-person group, I think the key idea is, you can't renegotiate successfully, in any meaningful way without everyone being involved and everyone kind of being on the same page. And it just seems like when it came to business, the ladies just were never on the same page at the same time, which is quite unfortunate. His other question was, why is Terry not under fire for not joining the girls?
She is. I don't know who. Why don't we have her under fire? We must mean because a lot of people. I'm seeing the comments online. They're blaming Terry for a lot of things. They share his sentiment.
Yeah, I think that whenever you're sleeping with the producer or have a relationship with the producer,
can we use that instead of the other way? Like that's, come on. She deserves.
Let's call it what it is. It's been put out there. It's been put out there by Dawn.
Okay, but wait, just for housekeeping. So like, if you're having a long-term relationship with someone, would you want someone else describing it? Oh yeah, they're just bumping and grinding.
I don't mean it I don't really even mean it in a salacious. When you have a personal relationship outside of business with, a producer of the group, your interests are not 100% about the group. Like anyone that I'm spending intimate time with, that person is automatically going to get something different than, someone I may be doing business with, because I'm more involved in a different type of way. We got pillow talk, we got intimacy, we got a different type of thing going on. So I think that already puts the group in a very precarious situation.
I don't, because Don never expressed any concerns with them getting from Too Tough Enough Productions. You have to remember, Tommy and Denny are not Electra. Electra is Sylvia Rhone. So when it came time to leave Tommy and Denny, they all did. She didn't say Terry put up a fight. They all left. What Terry, like the interview that you told us to listen to, Terry is saying, and Terry, you have to remember, Terry's probably the only one who had a record deal before In Vogue. I know Cindy did a lot of acting. I don't know if she ever had a record deal. Dawn, as a teen or something, she recorded her, she was recording songs with a producer or something. And I know Maxine had a band, but I don't know that any of them were signed to deals before. And Terry, remember, was with Kashif. And Terry always, when she talks about it, she's like, I really didn't like that experience. So she probably knows like how difficult it is to get out of a contract and know what's realistic in the industry where, and so I don't think that, renegotiations, that's one thing, but then also trying to get other deals. Like she probably knew things, that they didn't know and was like, okay, that's not going to work, because she had experience with the music industry and getting out of a contract before. So that's why I don't think that when people are always bringing up like, personal relationships, she left Too Tough Enough with the rest of them. She left. Then Sylvia Rhone became the dragon that they had to slay. And I don't even like saying it like that, because it's like, I don't think, people always have to be at odds and have conflict, but I'm just saying like Electra is no longer Tommy and Denny. They're no longer signed to Too Tough Enough.
I think like at the end of the day, like we don't know the truth, right? So I think we have to like reconcile that we will never get the answers like that unless somebody has a recording. And if you have a recording of any of these conversations, then you should drop those in the inbox, partofusevf@gmail.com. But what is clear and abundant here is that like in the midst of all of this, there were lots of different dynamics happening. There were lots of different desires and ideas for the future. And when there are cracks like that in the foundation, I feel like it's just sort of it's gonna go from there. And so with solo ambitions and whoever was in relationship with whomever, it just was getting way too complicated, and there were just lots of different like ideas going on that took away from what should have been, at the end of the day, a united front regardless between the four ladies. And so like that's just kind of what it is. And we're just going to have to get used to the fact that that's how it played out, and that there's all these shoulda, coulda, wouldas won't change anything at this point.
Right.
The shoulda, coulda, wouldas are fun to talk about.
That is true too.
They are, but they are frustrating, because at the end of the video, we're like,
that is true.
It's at the end of it, we're like, oh my God, we still got the same thing. We still got the same result.
I just can't see anything happening differently. And like the examples, DT, that you used, Friends, Modern Family, TLC, I mean, might be somewhat comparable, but like Prince can tour. So when he's renegotiating a contract, like he's a big touring act, and Vogue was a big touring act at the time, but you have two members who are mothers now. So what are the other two supposed to do? So it's kind of like you have leverage, but you're not making income. So then that's putting you at a disadvantage. Larry Hagman, of course I know him from I Dream of Jeannie and Dynasty, so I don't particularly know what you're talking about. Renegotiations. And Esther Rowe, now I could just see her dropping that dish anyway, Esther Rowe, what was it, Good Times?
Esther Rowe left.
Yeah,
Good
she
Times.
left, so I don't know about her, because she was mad that Jimmy.
No, she wasn't. Yeah, and she came back for more money and more control, essentially.
Oh, well, I mean, to me, anyway, I'm not even gonna get into that, but I'm just saying, like, what I'm trying to say is some people have, like, friends, they have a lot of leverage because, like, you know, during the off seasons, they're doing movies. I know none of them ever had like a huge movie, or maybe they did. I don't know. I don't really get down with friends like that. Living single, but like what I'm trying to say is, at the time that they decided to go into renegotiations, you know, it wasn't advantageous because then you have two members like, well, what are we going to do for money? What were they? I mean, really, what were they supposed to do while your other two members are, you know, they're becoming mothers? I know Cindy was married. Is Maxine's, someone from her team reached out to us and let us know that she was not married, but of course she was in a relationship. And she always says that the timing was right. When she talks about having her daughter, she says, I felt like the timing was right. Why did she feel like the timing was right? Because they were not working. They weren't going to be on the road. So then at that point, what leverage? I mean, you have leverage, but it's like you're not from a position of power, in my opinion. So I don't think Terry, Dawn, like, I totally get why they would want to do solo records. They have to work.
Well, in hindsight, what do you believe would have happened to En Vogue long term if Terry had never veered off and did her solo album in 1995? Did that make any difference in the demise of the group, in your opinion? Why or why not?
I feel like this is a tricky question because it's already been brought up that, like, we're not just talking about business. We're also talking about personal lives. Like, we're talking about, like, family planning. We're talking about all these kinds of things. And so it's like, yes, like, sure, Terry don't have that much weight as we think we're giving this. Like, Terry's album has a significant chunk of weight, but like Cindy and Max were also choosing to like figure out what they wanted to do family wise, etc. Like, these were all factors that shaped the future and the trajectory of the group. It's unfair to put all of that on Terry. That being said, I think having kids is great, and so I feel like women should be able to have their kids when they want to have their kids too.
I
so
agree.
Like, it's not like we're saying anything that deviates from the group is bad. I think anything that doesn't best serve the future of the group is tricky, but like, I just don't think that we can say Terry's solo album took everything off the rails or whatever. Like, the demise of the group is not to be put on Terry's solo album. So let's just stop that.
I think y'all gave Terry a little bit too much grace, for my opinion, but
JP.
Listen, let me tell y'all something. My mother had me, and 4 weeks later, she was at work. Okay, women go to work. Having a child does not mean you're not able to go to work. I feel like Maxine felt like the time was right because they had no work, so I guess she would have a baby. Because they were not working, so it's like, well, I'm not working, I might as well have a baby. If they were working, I'm sure things would have went different. And I think that had they negotiated together as a unit, had they went to other labels and had been able to come back to Elektra and say, we got this, we're all ready to roll, they're going to buy us out of our contract, we're able to, that is leverage. That's just how you negotiate. So, I mean, you can't put it all on Terry, but I think that if she was truly the one person who was not willing to be on board with going to LaFace, as Dawn tells it, then, I mean, that does fall on her. But, I don't think that her album was like the demise of the group. No, I do think that, when a group member goes solo and flops, I mean, that's definitely not cute. I think it does kind of lower your stock. But, like what Matan said, they got their biggest hit after that. So at the end of the day, no, I don't think Southern Gal, I don't think that it was the demise of the group. I just think it was definitely one of the valleys. It was a low moment. But they had a big peak after that.
A very big peak. And I think, JP, that you give Dawn too much grace. I think that she...
Somebody's got to do it on this podcast.
Right. Well, yeah.
It can't just be me and DT, okay?
1 out of 4 ain't bad. But I would say, like, to me, like, I think of when David Geffen called Don Felder, a malcontent. Now, Don Felder is the member of the Eagles. The Eagles are so interesting to me because they have 4. They were doing well. They definitely weren't at their peak. They had like gold albums. They might get a number 1 here or there. You know, they had The Best of My Love, Take It Easy. It was 4 of them. They brought in a 5th person at the end of the 3rd album. And then they had One of These Nights. And then they had Hotel California, which, if you know, that's a huge record. It sold millions and millions of records. And I don't know if I hear it so much because I'm in California or if just they play it everywhere. But like the Eagles are huge. So he came in as not original member. But he had contractual issues where he was given a contract. And he was like, I'm not signing this. Like back in the 70s, you said we were going to split everything equally. So when they kicked him out, he filed for wrongful termination and got a settlement. But then the lawsuits kept flying back and forth. And I say all that to say she, the way she tells the stories, it just seems like there was nothing that anyone could have done because, okay, she was like, she really didn't want to do a solo album. She said this is what she said. But she was like, in her mind, I guess Sylvia was playing some kind of chess and she wanted to keep the girls divided. So she was like, oh, okay, well, I'll give you, I think her advance was $2,500. She was about to lose her house that time.
$2,000?
$250,000. She recorded songs. But then it's like, well, but she was really trying to play us against each other. And, I didn't really want to go solo. But then when she said that Terry's album didn't do well and mine couldn't be released, well, I outsmarted her. So then I wanted my solo rights released. And then, so it just seemed like Don uses that as like her justification for why she didn't tell the girls that she, had to deal with aftermath and that she was doing a solo record, and as justification for pretty much everything. I feel like she's the one who kind of just makes that the point of contention, trying to cover for herself because she wasn't upfront with the girls and telling them that, one, she was going into the recording studio with Sylvia just like Terry, then 2, that she had to deal with aftermath, that of course it was going to piss Sylvia off. So when they were at that meeting in 97, they knew nothing about it. They're blindsided. So that's DT, what how I look at it, because that's what happened. Like Don, everything, like he gave her $250,000 because she's saying, she's having issues paying her bills. Then she turns around, oh, you're not really serious about this, even though she admitted prior that she didn't really want to do a solo record. It's just like, it's with her, it's always going to be something. So I feel like even if Terry's album did well and she got to do a record and it didn't do as well as Terry's, that would have been an issue. Oh, they favored Terry. Or if Terry's flopped and she still got to do hers and hers did well, with the kind of ego she has, oh my God, even without her releasing a record, like she had this huge ego, like, oh, I sang lead on this song. It was me. It's my voice. That would have been like, it would have been trying to deal, like, she would have been Diana Ross times 10. Had she got, even if she got a one-hit song, even a top 40 hit, Dawn, to me, just think how she operates, she would have just been insufferable if she would have stayed in the group. Moving on to your last question, DT, because ain't no mountain high enough to keep you from reaching. Question 4, do you believe that quite possibly, just maybe, Terry did not... isn't this the same question you just said? Do you believe that quite possibly, just maybe, Terry did not stick with the girls to negotiate in 1995-ish because she was told by Denny, Tommy, Sylvia, Rhone, Electra, that she was being groomed to go solo from the start? Is it far-fetched to believe that could have been what was going on behind the scenes, behind the other girls' back? If Terry's album went double platinum, would she have ever even gone back to In Vogue? Were they really setting up a Beyonce, Destiny's Child, or Supreme's Diana Ross situation with Terry as far back as the beginning? Like, this question is ridiculous. Okay, I'll stop. Would love for you all to have a healthy, balanced discussion on these topics. I'll be tuning in. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Even though this question is ridiculous. And this is all I'm going to say.
No, why is it ridiculous,
it's one sentence. This is all I'm going to say. That you could take it, JP. If they were doing all of that, like you comparing her to Beyonce and Diana Ross, didn't they sing all of the stuff? And weren't there some songs that the group members weren't like? Beyonce, according to her in that Vibe article, the other girls were lip syncing to her voice. That's what she said. But with the Supremes, I know there's some Supreme songs that they're not even on. So if that was the case, wouldn't they have given her more solos and all of the singles would have had her on lead? DT. Okay, that's it. That's all I have to say.
I agree. There's no way that, like, now if Southern Girl had actually been double platinum, that's a good question. If what would they have done? Like, what? That's a great question. But like, what would any girl group have done if? Like, I just feel like that's like there's a universe where Terry got to live out her solo thing a little bit longer, but the idea that like that was what was expected from the start, I think is silly, because they would have. Doesn't she have like the least number of leads in like?
That's what the Dom fans always say. According to them, Cindy and Terry haven't sang anything.
So I just think that's kind of far. That is far fetched to think that that's how it would have went down.
Okay, so I do think. Now I don't. So let me ask you this. So I feel like what happens in a lot of girl groups, and I think In Vogue is like a prime example of this. I do feel like they like to keep the girls in disarray. Like, I think they do like to keep the girls at odds. Do you guys think that possibly they say certain things to one girl, like, girl, you know, you're going to be the star. And they're telling the same thing to the other one, girl, you know, you are the star. Like, we need this album and then you're going to be the one. And then they tell the third one, girl, you know what? Your time is coming. You know what I'm saying? Like, do you guys think that is something that happens? Because I don't think that when Tommy and Denny set up the group, I don't think it was like, okay, this is Terry is going to be the Diana Ross. No, I don't think that is the thing. But I feel like these executives and the people in charge, I do feel like they tell girls what they want to hear to kind of get what they want as a result. You know what I'm saying?
Well, since you asked, then I can chime in, I guess, because at first I was just going to be quiet. But to me, like, you can always kind of tell. And I think, and Fifth Harmony is in no way comparable to In Vogue, but there's the Sylvia Rhone effect, because I think she's the executive at whatever record company they're on. So to me, that one kind of sounds like the squealing platypus who ended up with a solo record, and actually has had success.
My God.
The Havana Unana girl, what's her name?
Camila
Okay, well, we're naming names.
Y'all so
but
shady.
I would just say, like, to me, it was like
shady.
you knew
Whoever
you knew that she was being groomed. Like, it was very obvious. With In Vogue, Tommy and Denny were like, okay, Cindy and Terry had the first record, so we're going to make sure that Donna Maxine gets solos.
Wait a minute now. Didn't Maxine say she was told she would never sing lead? Didn't we cover that in the Vibe?
We covered that, but then in Funky, I mean, that obviously changed because she had Give It Up to Annette. She had My Lovin'. Tommy and Denny and remember, just they said you might not be able to, and a lot of times when you have like her when they heard her voice and hearing the lows, like, who's the guy in Boyz II Men who never sang? I don't know how he actually sounds like as a vocalist without a group, but he was supposed to hold those bottoms down. You need that person on the bottom, so I can kind of get that. And then another thing is that a lot of groups, back then, like, not everybody sang lead. There's nothing extraordinary about that. That's the way it really was. Like, you had a lead singer for the most part. Even at the Pointer Sisters, they all had leads, but Anita got the chunk, if you want to count like the hits and all this stuff. Like, she was doing most of it. So to me, like you're kind of saying, I think they might tell girls different things, but it seems like they're very upfront with the magazine, and not even the example that you gave, but when she was very upset with the group in like the I guess maybe the middle of the 2010s, and she was just spilling all the tea, she said, and of course I don't know if this is true because she was upset, but I tend to believe her. She said that Denny was like, look, I got one of the members in my pocket, Cindy don't have a clue, and Don is loony. So what y'all really gonna do? So like I said, I don't know if she's saying that because she was upset with the group, or if that really happened. But she knew things. So I don't think there was. Like, you're not saying that to somebody you're trying to butter up. Like, you're basically like, look, there ain't no mountain high enough, like I told DT, basically. But to me, there was no grooming for, so like, you can kind of see it in a lot of groups, and you guys can chime in, like Ginger Spice, like maybe Ginger and Scary, like, but if anybody, Ginger, like, you can just kind of see, not
Ginger.
Yes.
For the Spice Girls to be solo, the one that could sing the least.
And she was the one who had the first. Yeah, she was the first one with the first record deal. Out of all of them, yeah.
Well, it's because she quit the group.
Right, well, maybe I shouldn't say group,
I always
but she got a lot
felt
of
like Mel C was the one that was. To me, I thought Mel C was the one who was kind of the. I don't know. I mean, I thought Mel C. See, she seemed like the one that was kind of being pushed to be more of the star. Like she was more.
That
the
was
voice.
the one who
like, she
was like in the
one.
soccer clothes.
Yeah, the one who could really sing.
So y'all know I ride hard for the Spice Girls. Mel C was she was the voice, but she was not the bankable one.
Well, that's true, because she was giving very lesbianic tease at the time.
She was definitely not, like, if any of them, I feel like it was like Emma, the Baby Spice, or I mean Jerry. Jerry was the most popular member of the Spice Girls. That's why it resonated so much when she left, because she was the personality of the group. She was the one who was the like sort of raucous, crazy interview. Like she was the good time. And so when she left, it was like, well, who were the Spice Girls with the most personality?
Right.
So I think that there's something to be said about what happens when each girl's giving something that's kind of individualized like that. Mm-hmm. But In Vogue has always been a unit. Like they work, it's like a well-oiled machine that you need all of the parts to work it the right way. And so I just never thought, I don't know. I feel like, who knows? I do believe there's a universe where people were like whispering in this girl's ear and telling her this thing, because I think that's how business works, unfortunately. But it tells me more about the relationships that they had with each other, that they weren't working with each other first, and they were letting the other forces that be potentially like cause all this friction and issue. Because like if your shit's together with your girls and y'all like, we gonna make this thing work, then like no matter who's whispering in your ear, you're making sure everybody is knows what's going on. But like there were other interests at play. I think I would imagine people were I would hope people would own up to being selfish, because I think people were being selfish at the time. How do I benefit individually, not
it's
just
human nature, and that's
so,
why there's never going to be male or female any group with an equal power balance, and and really, it's very rare that everyone stays together consistently. It's almost impossible.
Yeah. I hope we offered a healthy, balanced discussion.
DT, Professor DT.
DT. I think if we were ever going to have like a guest host, we should have DT on to shake things up.
We already have a public defender for Dom, though.
In addition to DT's letter, we do have an additional submitted letter that we should run through from Alicia. Alicia says, "Hi, everybody. I'm so happy that you have returned, and as always, a very fun and entertaining podcast. I even find myself learning stuff I didn't know. For example, Cindy's divorce, which Alicia says is really sad. Liking the new segment at the end with the unreleased rare songs. That's a cool and fun idea. I really like It's About Love. Yes. Good job, Alicia. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the others. I think most of them are pretty good. Some much better than others that end up on the albums, in my opinion. Keep up the great work and a welcome back."
Thank you, Alicia.
Well, speaking of that segment that you love, we do have another rare track. It's called Funky Mellow Christmas.
Marvin Gaye, I know you like it that way. Come and give it up and take my hand. All I wanna do this Christmas time is fall. Funky mellow Christmas. All I wanna do this Christmas time is get it on. Get it on, get it on, get it on. All I wanna do this Christmas time is fall. Get it on, get it on, get it on.
Released back on December the 8th, 2000. And it was included on the Japanese compilation album Music of Love for Tomorrow's Children. What do you guys think about it?
I didn't like it. I like Christmas music that sounds Christmassy.
Oh, Matan.
I do. Like, I don't really like when they try to modernize stuff. Like, if like it's silver bells, it's Christmas time in the city, and it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Like, I just like tracks like those. Like this one, the production was bad. Let me just start there. Like the ladies, it was Cindy had a lead, Terry had a lead, Maxine had a lead. You know, they're always fine vocally. It's just like the production quality. Then it's just like, I don't know, like if you're gonna do a Christmas, which I always wanted for them, like if they're gonna do Christmas music, I thought a great thing to do before Pentatonics was to do like it all a cappella, like something like What Child Is This, or just something like along those lines. But like trying to make it like New Jack in 2000 when New Jack was already out, and then it's a Christmas song. Like it's all of these elements that are just they just don't come together quite in the way I would like.
I'm a fan. I don't know. I love Christmas music generally. So like even the crappiest Christmas music is gonna give me a little bit of joy.
And we gon' tear it off, make it mellow and Vogue funky mellow. China she they could decide.
Gonna sound as sweet as Marvin Gaye. I know you like it that way. Come and give it up and take my hand. All I wanna do this Christmas time is get funky. All I wanna do this Christmas time is get it on. Get it on. All I wanna do this Christmas time is get funky.
I kind of like it. It feels like I like an attempt at something that, like, to be, you know, a little bit contrarian. Like, I kind of like original Christmas music because I just sort of max out on all of the, like, the standards and covers over and over and over and over and over again. So if you're going to do something, like, with a weird or funky or different kind of arrangement, I'd rather it be an original song than like, I don't need the disco version of Silent Night. I don't need the big band version of Oh Holy Night. Like, just give me, if you're going to explore on a new track or on an original track. And so I kind of like it. I just think they all sound great, which is like, I mean, per usual, but I really like that Max kind of shows out at the end in a way that I don't think we're maybe used to hearing at that point. Maybe like, you know, she's singing, but she's also like giving like the best ad libs at the end too. So I just kind of, I don't know, I'm not a fan. And then the compilation or the album that it's on, like, it was kind of, they were in good company. They had, like, you know, Shanice on there. They had Take 6 on there. They had Yolanda Adams and Sting on there. Like, it was kind of it was giving a cool thing. So, I mean, it was only in Japan, but would have been nice if we had a shot at it in the US to enjoy it.
I thought the song was quite cute until that no-name rapper made an appearance, and I don't know who they are, but I'm sure they've never rapped again. Yeah, I thought they sounded cute. To me, this was obviously a song they recorded back in the day, though. I mean, I feel like they recorded this when they recorded Silent Night, right?
But Dawn wasn't on it, was she? I didn't hear Dawn.
Dawn wasn't on it.
I thought I heard Dawn, no?
No, I don't think so. I think this was was given. I think it was given 99 2000.
I could have sworn I heard Dawn. Maybe. Oh, well.
Well, you always hearing Dawn.
Tell the truth.
She's in my DNA. Oh no. Okay, because I thought I said featured all 4 ladies, but okay, I stand corrected. Maybe I need to listen again. Either way, I mean, I enjoyed it. I thought it was cute.
Well, folks, we have come to the end of another marvelous episode. Stream Part of Us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube, and most of your podcasting platforms. For more In Vogue related content, you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at In Vogue Craze, or on Twitter at Part of Us Fancast. If you have ideas, interview requests, comments, secret audio footage from backroom deals and business dealings,
contract negotiations.
Contract negotiations. Email them to us at partofusevf@gmail.com, and we will see you next time. Good night.
Bye.
This episode of Part of Us at In Vogue Fancast was researched, written, produced, and edited by Matthew at Culture Inject Productions. The intro and outro music was produced by Wolves and Vincent Tone. We're more than just a podcast, we're a fan community. You can keep up to date on En Vogue and chat with other fans by visiting En Vogue Craze on Facebook. You can also follow us on YouTube and Instagram at En Vogue Craze and Twitter at partofusfancast. Part of Us and En Vogue Fancast is not endorsed by En Vogue, E1 Music, or En Vogue Records, and is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. En Vogue and its names, images, and audio clips are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of their respective copyright holders.
All right, welcome back to Part of Us. Before we begin, let me start that again. It's been a second. Welcome back to Part of Us. Before we dig into today's, oh my God, what is wrong with my? Hold on, let me take a sip.
Let's talk about some trending news. En Vogue has excited the fashion world once again, but this time from 25-year-old outtakes. Only the...
You're on episode 6.
My bad.